from poisoning kings to selling crowns. Here are 5 royal plots that ended up with family members betraying the crown. Mary, Queen of Scots, was born into royalty in 1542. She was the first of her name and was destined to be a great queen one day. But after she was forced to abdicate the throne at age 6 in favor of her cousin, she spent much of her life plotting against him. Mary lived in France for many years, married the French royal, and bore his children. But when her husband died, she returned to Scotland and took the throne as Mary, Queen of Scots. Unfortunately, she made a lot of enemies while there, including her own half-sister, the former Princess Elizabeth, who had been passed over for the Scottish throne. Mary also made enemies of many of the Scottish nobility when she married her cousin, Henry, Lord Darnley, who was considered beneath her station. After Lord Darnley was murdered 2 years later, Mary married her secretary, David Rizzio, which only made her more unpopular. When nobles attempted to force her to divorce Rizzio, she fled to England, where she stayed in the custody of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth. However, Mary's stay in England was far from relaxing. Not only did Elizabeth have her imprisoned for 19 years, but it was uncovered that Mary had been involved in plotting to kill her cousin. Elizabeth finally decided to end Mary's life in 1587, and even though she didn't want to do it, Mary's own son and heir also signed the death warrant, officially making him an accessory to her murder. King Charles II was just 9 years old when he became the King of Bling. Not bling, 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 although that would have been cool. I mean, Bling is in the Kingdom of Bling, or as it's otherwise known, Spain. But he didn't actually rule over Spain. He ruled over England, Scotland, and Ireland while living in exile in Normandy. You see, England had gone through a civil war and had deposed Charles's father, King Charles I, putting young Charles II into exile and establishing a republic instead. Charles II lived a rather pampered life in Normandy, staying in palaces owned by his royal relatives, the French monarchy, while receiving an allowance from his mother, Queen Henrietta Maria. In fact, it was rumored that the Queen lavished so much money on Charles and his brother James that they were known as the 2 most expensive princes in Europe. The 2 brothers eventually returned to England following the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, but once back on British soil, Charles II wasted no time in getting revenge on those that had plotted against his family and betrayed the crown. One of the first acts of his reign was to banish 4 of his supporters: John, Lord Mordaunt, Colonel Thomas Harrison, Sir Robert Heath, and John Lambert, all without their heads. After 35-year-old Mary, Queen of Scots, was beheaded on the orders of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, in 1587, Elizabeth had secured the throne of England and never married. Her advisors suggested that she wed so she could produce an heir, but she refused until her death in 1603. But when she died, she left behind no legitimate heirs. Therefore, the throne went to Mary's son, King James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. He ruled both Scotland and England, although each country still had its own parliament. Unfortunately for James, his mother had been very unpopular in England, and he was seen as a Catholic monarch by the English people. This caused him to come under attack by various groups seeking to overthrow him and replace him with someone else. In 1605, a group of English Catholics led by Robert Catesby successfully blew up a large portion of the House of Lords while James was inside. It is now known as the Gunpowder Plot. Fortunately for James, the plot failed because the conspirators had sent an anonymous letter warning one of the lords about the plot. In giving him time to cancel his attendance at the meeting that day, James was furious about the plot and created a holiday to commemorate his escape from the bombing. Every November, the United Kingdom celebrates Bonfire Night with fireworks and bonfires to remember the foiling of this deadly plot. And if you're watching this video in the UK, we hope you have fun celebrating tonight. Gustavus Adolphus came to power in Sweden in 1594 at the age of 18. He was eager to make his mark on the world. The chance came soon when the Kalmar War broke out between Sweden and Denmark and Way. Gustavus Adolphus led the Swedish army to victory and won control of southern Sweden for his country. He then went on to defeat the Danish forces again in 1611, but his victories didn't stop there. He also led his troops to victory against the Polish and the Russians. And in 1625, he was offered the Polish throne after the dethronement of their previous king, Sigismund III. Although Gustav accepted the offer, he never went to Poland. Instead, he began preparing for a new war against the Habsburg dynasty, which had controlled the Holy Roman Empire since 1438. He wanted to break the Habsburg monopoly on European power, and he wanted to do it in Italy. His plan was to march south and take the Papal States. But unfortunately, he was killed before he could set his plan in motion. He was killed during the Battle of Lutter in 1632, even in death. He managed to achieve part of his goal as his troops were able to retreat after his passing and live to fight another day. His adopted daughter, Christina, then took the throne, although she spent most of her time ruling over Sweden in a drunken stupor. She abdicated the throne in 1654 in favor of her cousin, Queen Dowager Hedwig Eleonora, and died 3 days later. Queen Isabella of Spain was only 14 years old when she was arranged to marry the heir to the Portuguese throne. But the wedding was never consummated, and the couple never even shared a bed. It's because Isabella's uncle, King Alfonso X of Portugal, had her secretly lobotomized. Once the procedure was complete, Alfonso kept his niece locked away in a monastery for the rest of her life, never allowing anyone to speak to her. Isabella's cousin, King Sebastian of Portugal, tried to get her released, but he was denied, so he took matters into his own hands. In 1578, he launched a coup against his brother and seized the throne. Sebastian then gave Isabella her freedom, and the couple finally did get married. But their happiness was short-lived. In 1580, Sebastian was killed in the Battle of Quibier while trying to invade Morocco. Shortly thereafter, Isabella was forced to flee to France. There she lived in exile until 1598 when Spain came under the rule of her brother, Philip III. At this point, she had already given birth to 3 sons and declared them heirs to the Spanish throne. But Philip refused to accept her claim that her sons should inherit his crown. This caused Isabella to return to Portugal with her sons and declare them the rightful heirs to the Portuguese throne. She spent her final years fighting for the return of her family's honor, but she died in 1626, and her sons continued the struggle long after she was gone. Which royal family was your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.